Commissioners, today's date is December 3rd, 2018. A little after 5:15 p.m. Go ahead and call the roll.
Commissioner Ernst?
Here.
Commissioner Engel?
Here.
Commissioner Rollins?
Here.
Commissioner Vogelsong? Here. Commissioner Wright? Here.
Mr. G, changes to the agenda. I would like to make public aware of item number one, municipal services presentation, understand is pulled from the agenda this evening. Any other changes, commissioners? Hearing none, at this time is an opportunity for the public to address the commission on items of concern to you. If you would, I think we've passed out cards, or we have not. Sorry, Joanne. What we can do is if you do have a request of the commission, if you just come forward, state your name and address for the record, and we'd be happy to entertain your questions. We'll send the mic into the audience and just hold up your hand.
Good evening. Richard Levitt, and I have a property at 6161 Northwest 2nd. A few concerns. Number one, I'm a resident of Florida, but I'm not here during the summertime. I'm up north. But I've been trying to stay somewhat connected with the process here. But I have some questions, and they may have already been addressed, and forgive that if they have been, but there may be some folks in the audience that also have a concern. But the first and foremost, it's the time of the construction. I don't know, 2 years seems to me, having heard of and followed constructions of golf courses around the country and elsewhere, that especially in a climate such as this, grass can grow like continues. I mean, I've seen courses ripped apart up North Florida, and they're playing on the following season. So that's an immediate concern. The period of time since this whole process has started to wind up not necessarily having a golf course that we can play on until October of 2020 just seems to be much more lengthy than needs to be. Second, the clubhouse completion. Is the plan to complete the clubhouse going to be contemporaneous to the construction of the golf course and the opening of the golf course? I mean, if that could be addressed. The concern I have, I've played a number of executive golf courses as well. I've been playing golf since I was 9 years old. I played some marvelous golf courses. I've played the executive golf courses. I enjoy them all. I have no problem with executive golf courses at all. But here we have, in our community, we have, and in the past, we have currently one 9-hole golf course that's operational right now. And from what I have read in the past, it's not exactly operating in the black. It seems to have needed subsidy to keep operational. And if I'm mistaken on that, please correct me. I don't know how another executive golf course is going to do when one is already sort of struggles to keep its course above water throughout the year. And we know how limited play is certainly during the summertime. And it probably is not really up to snuff right now if you were to go to the Red Reef. And I've done some work over there. I've actually volunteered over there. So I have some knowledge of the kind of flow of players that they have moving through there. The concept of the 18 holes in the executive golf course is also creates a bit of a problem for me in terms of the amount of play. This whole process, I think, is designed to generate income. There's no reason to get involved in this process at all if you don't think that the program can be profitable. I have been a member of a club in up north for 26 years, 27 holes. Those are essentially 54 holes of golf, the way you can move players around 27 holes of golf. 18, you are limited to 72 players during any period of time. Even a high flow period time. That's all you're going to put on that golf course. But with 54 holes, you can put a lot of players out there. Osprey Point, their business plan seems to be working very, very well. The parking lots are jammed. The frequency of tee times is
Mr.
very
Levin, if you don't mind me interrupting,
Yeah, certainly.
I'm welcome back. We've been through a lot of these issues this summer, and the 3 and 4 public hearings we've had in the process.
Okay.
So I'm sure some of your questions will probably be answered this evening. The construction time that we've got, we want to get it improved. Part of the biggest problem is the permitting process. We've been told by the city is a 5-month permitting process, which seems unreasonable to me, but that's what we're being told. So that'll hold up the construction. I think we're set to go put out an RFP for the construction in early January. And like you, we want to see this course completed as soon as possible. The other issues regarding the design of the course, we've been through multiple public hearings, and selecting just one component of the course probably doesn't give you a complete vision of what we're looking to do at the course. There's a par 3, or short course rather I should say, at Pinehurst that we're modeling the short course on the northeast part of the course to be. And the other areas too, yeah, we want to make a profit just to cover our expenses. We're not getting in this to lose money. So your concerns are very real to us, and a lot of those have been addressed earlier. But if you had any other questions, I'd be happy to take those down and discuss those with the architect.
Could I ask just one more?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. The training center. Here again, the training centers are nice. And there are a few around the country. Some very, very notable programs around the country. One in Palm Beach. One in Miami. But if you know, when they have these training centers, and they're very profitable, but they have them in different regions of the country during the year. They don't have. They're not in Palm Beach in June. They're not in Miami. They're in other areas. You know, Arizona, Palm Springs. So they can afford to have personnel at these various locations and students to come to their training centers. I don't know how profitable this will be because it's one location in one spot. What would you expect to see in terms of people coming down to go to the training center during the difficult times?
We're hoping that we'll be able to develop a very active youth program through that training center, and I'm not sure that we'll be. We may attract some folks from up north to come down during the season if it's a little better training center. Osprey with the Don Law training camp has a very successful camp year round.
Yeah.
And so, using that as a model, everybody points to Osprey as being the course to model your own course out. I think that we'll have some improvements over what they're doing, and we do expect to make a profit off of the course through, after the first couple of years of getting the development behind us and getting the course matured in.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to.
Yes, sir. I appreciate your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Councilman and Councilwoman. My name is Dr. Eric Leader. I live at 6000 Northwest 2nd Avenue. My apartment is situated in such a location at the north end of the building that stray golf balls are constantly hitting my windows and patio screens. And the problem is easily resolvable, especially now that you're in your development stage. If you simply put up a tree between my apartment and the first tee. It's the first tee. You could also relocate the first tee 30 or 40 feet further north, and possibly to be slightly shorter, or move the green back a little bit. But I bought the apartment when it was not a golf course. About 2-3 years ago, and I thought the property was not going to be a golf course. It was a real estate developer had control of it. So I now have a situation where my apartment is endangered. When I purchased it, 2 windows were hit by golf balls, screens. So it's a very real problem for me. That part sits about 40 feet north of the tee and about 50 feet away from it. And poor golfers, slash right into it. So it's something I'd like to take into consideration. By the way, I just want to tell you that I'm truly impressed with the way you people work together and put this deal together and are executing it. My congratulations to you.
Dr. Leader, you're saying your apartment near the first tee, is that correct?
Yes.
I'm almost certain we can find a way to put a tree up there that's going to protect your unit and the screening as well. And I'm sure the architect's listening to your concern regarding that.
May I present this to you? It just gives you the locations and the simple ideas.
Yes, sir. Just give it to the lady with the microphone. We'll make sure that our golf course architect receives that.
Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome.
Good evening. Michelle Peel, 7391 Northeast 8th Court, Boca Raton, representing Friends of Gumbo Limbo, also known as Gumbo Limbo Nature Center Incorporated. I used to be a fixture at these meetings. You probably have been wondering what I've been up to. I am not going to talk about golf. Start with that. Just to bring you up to speed on what's been happening pertaining to Gumbo Limbo and the Friends of Gumbo Limbo. Last week we had an internal meeting with EDSA and the subconsultant Cambridge 7 out of Massachusetts. Commissioner Wolfgang participated in a portion of that meeting. That was a meeting to work on further refinement of the details of a master plan for Gumbo Limbo. That process went very well. The first day of the meeting was actually a side study that was funded by Friends of Gumbo Limbo on the aquarium programming at the center. So Friends is also participating in paying for this planning effort, which you may not have been aware of up to this point. The output of that meeting is going to feed into the second day meeting with EDSA and their overall master site plan. So we're excited about the level of detail that was discussed. It's going to end up with a much more refined plan. We already found a way to shave some dollars off of that plan. Looking forward to having an output of this effort sometime in early next year, and discussions. I'm sure the city will come to you with a date on when they would like to present it to the district. To support that, the Friends organization has also been taking steps to strengthen our ability to be a good partner to the district and the city in supporting Gumbo Limbo, particularly in raising funds for operational and capital endeavors. So I want to make everyone aware that we are actively in the search for a retail store manager for the center. Our current manager is retiring. And we are also looking to hire our first executive director of the Friends organization. Both of those are posted currently on Indeed.com. If you Google Gumbo Limbo and Boca Raton, you'll be able to find them. And we're working with an agency, a consultant, Canico and Company, to conduct those searches for us. So I anticipate, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 months, to be able to introduce to you 2 of our new staff to our team. The third thing, you may be aware of this, but just in case you are not, this past week, construction started on the next phase of the boardwalk and the tower, the replacement tower on the property. So the fencing has been up. I think they're staging the material. That's a 6-month project, so we anticipate that to have an opening date sometime in May 2019. Thank you.
Welcome back, Michelle. Thank you for the update.
Commissioners, good evening. My name is Alex Schultz. I'm a resident of 1320 Southwest 14th Drive in Palm Beach Farms. I'm here this evening in my capacity as president of the Boca Raton Little League to address the an item for regular business of refurbishment of the batting cages at Hash Reef Park and here at Sugar Sand Park. The cages, there's currently 2 of them at the Hash Reef Fields and 2 of them here at Sugar Sand. They get extensive use, as you all can probably imagine, by Little League teams in both. We have a fall season and a spring season, and through those two seasons, nearly 1,000 families in Boca Raton participate in our league, and batting cages are obviously a very popular item. It's a great place, safe place to train kids and let them get hitting sessions in. The cages, through no fault of anyone, but just passage of time and use, are in need of refurbishment. In our view, the netting is weakening, the padding on the poles is coming loose and creating a few potential safety issues as time goes on. So I'm before the board to ask for your consideration to financially make a financial commitment to refurbish those cages at both Sugar Sand and Hash Reef. The Boca Raton Little League, as a 501c3 organization, our board of directors is willing to work with the board to try to make a financial commitment to share the expense of that with the board to make it as budget neutral as possible, because it's just a great asset for our community and for the league, and a great asset to these two parks. I'm happy to speak during your regular business discussion if anyone has specific questions about the league's other use of these cages.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Didn't we, I think one of the first assignments when I was got on this board, we approved a refurbishment of one of them, and I know we reevaluated.
Craig, that was in another fiscal year, and it did not come forward. When I was contacted about that, we asked for some representative to come forward to talk about it, and it never occurred. And Mr. Schultz reached out to me this year, and I said we would put it on the agenda and see what we could do about, solving that problem, which is a safety issue as much as anything. So I'm in full support of that project once we get to it on our new business item.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you. Robert Duquesne, 5351 Northwest 3rd Terrace. I'm here on behalf of myself as a supporter of Keep Golf in Boca. Harold could not be here, and Coach Sands could not be here. So I supplied each one of you with one of our summaries of our two-page summary of items on the golf course. Is it my understanding that tonight you're going to approve the actual layout of the golf holes, or is it just the general concept of what we've already approved in the option 1 with 18 regulation holes, and then the driving range and the short course? That's already been approved. So when it says final approval, is this the actual layout of the golf course that's going to be approved?
Mr. Kane, I don't know that we're going to see any renderings of how the course is laid out this evening, but I think we're just going to ratify what we've previously voted on, and there may possibly be some changes that the architect's representative wants to present to us this evening. So we'll have to see what we finally approve this evening, if anything different than what we previously endorsed.
Okay, I was hoping to have the PDF up there that you had in the master plan, because even when I enlarge it to 400%, I still can't see the scorecard, and it's pretty hard to see even in this current PDF version. But I can tell you that based upon that option 1, there are several areas that can be improved on, as I noted in my handout there. And clearly the objective is to lengthen the south course, which is the southwest course, by removing the maintenance area and using this area for golf. It was recommended that hole number 1, which for college golfers, right now is a driver and a 7-iron, which is to get there in a par 5 is not that difficult for someone who can hit the ball 300 yards. It's recommended that the green be moved back into the left, and the tee box for number 2 be moved back as well. Under the proposed option number 1, that's going to end up with a dog leg near the maintenance area, and the dog leg actually is about close to the end of the current or the historical hole there. The other issue that I think that I have on the handout here is the dog leg on hole number 7 is the green that's currently located where hole number 8 fairway currently ends. This brings a lot of homes into play adjacent to the property, and also brings number 8 tee into play, which is dangerous for adjoining homes and golfers on the 8th tee. So it looks like, in our opinion, the solution is to extend the old 7th hole to possibly a double green with the 2nd hole, or even a double green with the 3rd hole with the dog leg more to the right as opposed to the left. Then you make the 8th hole, pull the tee box back and have that approximately 300 yard to 340 yard par 4. Normal par 36 9 holes have 2 par 5s, 2 par 3s, and 5 par 4s. If you made those changes, that would conform to the normal par 36. Again, and I think that on the northwest course, on the back 9, hole number 11 in option number 1 has a large dog leg also across the water. Our recommendation is to shorten that dog leg, have it over the water, not past the homes. There's a par 3, which is the 13th hole, and then swap the par 3 after the number 11th hole. So again, the option 1 scorecard for this proposal was not legible when I enlarged it by 400%. I asked Mr. Brent White for a copy of that, but that was just today, so I can understand if he didn't have time to get that scorecard to us. On the back page of that summary, real fast, I'm sure you've heard a lot of this before. Course should have playable tees for all ages, so a minimum of 5 to 6 tee boxes. Shorter tees should not be labeled as winners or seniors, but recommend numbered tee boxes. That seems to be the trend. Elevated greens, according to the Pinehurst model. Trees, none around the greens, according to the Oakmont model, but I think golfers might like to have shade around the tee boxes. Grass, the same grass for the fairways and the rough, just higher grass for the rough. Lowers the maintenance expenses. And the bunkers, low front lip with the higher for the higher handicapped golfers. And the water hazards, the canals and lakes. It would certainly be, hopefully, legally possible, or maybe you would have some type of agreement where the district is responsible so that we don't have a bunch of green algae ponds surrounding the golf course. Hopefully you would have some fountains and other issues that would help that.
Robert, you know better than that.
Well,
we're not going to have any green lakes out there. Come on.
Well, again, this is the planning process. We want to make sure that we get this, set up in the right direction.
Are you going to give the golf architect credit for that in your speech tonight, or are you going to take credit for having put that together?
Putting what together?
The memo there with the critique of the plan. I mean, that's pretty impressive for somebody who's a handicapper like I am to hear someone like you give that presentation.
Well, as I said, it wasn't myself, and as you know, I have, as I said before, there are other people who had input into this.
Understood. Well, tell Angelo we appreciate it.
Yes. I had a fax from him to New York today. But again, I think that the main issue is there are specific issues. Option 1 has the right direction for the holes, but I think that option 1, I think that nobody wants to have a dog leg around their house. So that would encourage people to fly 3 or 4 houses to get to the green, or fly, if unfortunately the high handicapper tries to hit the ball a long way like I might, I may not make the targeted area and end up bouncing off some roofs, which I know that's not what you want to do. And I think that there are easy ways around this and still achieve the objective of lengthening the south course and redesigning the north course, so that it's very enjoyable and very challenging.
I think you're going to find it to be both. We'll pass along your comments to the architect who's representative who's listening to things this evening, Robert. Is there anything else that you want to add in closing?
I think the last thing I talked about the last meeting is traffic, and your drawing right up there addresses the traffic and the parking issue. it's interesting that in that entire schematic there, I don't see any place for parking. This is something that one of my neighbors pointed out. And if you have the clubhouse where it's at,
Stand by on that, just hold that thought, okay?
Okay.
We'll be addressing that, as well as the traffic concerns that were mentioned in our last hearing.
okay, because again, several people that I talked to pointed out that they don't see any way that you're going to get traffic out of that northwest location
Robert,
without requiring.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think we're going to solve that problem for you this evening, okay?
That sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Thayer, you okay?
You want me to talk about?
Yes, Tom.
All right.
I want the invitation.
And Tom Thayer here, 4821 North Dixie Highway, and I'm not here to talk about the Art Koski World International Golf Course. I would like to invite everybody, it's holiday time, and on behalf of the Federation of Boca Raton Homeowners Association, which most all of us belong to here, tomorrow morning, 8:30 in the morning, doors open at 8. We'll be in the Royal Palm Room of the Community Center downtown. Come down, it's going to be a holiday festivities, and we'll have the Nova singers wandering around the crowd. It's going to be a lot of fun. And on the more serious side, we'll have City Council person, CRA Chairman Andrew O'Rourke, talking about art in public places. So some of you that are more interested in art than I am might enjoy that presentation. So come and join us tomorrow morning at the Community Center downtown.
What time? It's at what, 8 o'clock? 8:30?
8:30 is the start of the show, and 8 o'clock to refreshments and mingle with whoever's there.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else? I'll close this portion of our meeting and public requests. Commissioners, in your packet are the minutes of our previous board meeting held November the 19th. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, like sign. Passed unanimously. The first order of business, we have removed from those of you late coming municipal services presentation, and we're going to discuss the proposed schedule of district board meetings and office closings for 2019. It's in your packet. Commissioners, have you had an opportunity to review, and are there any issues that you have with the dates as outlined? Commissioner Wright, Commissioner Ernst, okay. Do we need a motion on those, Art? Okay. Commissioners, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting dates in 2019 as presented to you this evening.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Eagle, seconded by Commissioner Vogelsang. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Passed unanimously. The next item is the final approval of the Boca National Golf Club Plan, and I ask Mr. Brainwatt to come forward and open up the discussion.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Koski, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming tonight. I think there's probably a few people we haven't seen before. But if you weren't at the last meeting, I think we'll just go very quickly over the three options that we have in front of the district here. So we started with option one, which gave us the clubhouse. We put the clubhouse on the north parcel. This road here is Northwest 2nd Avenue. This is Clintmore, Jeffrey Street. And the old hotel site is here. I hope you can see the marker here.
No.
And the current clubhouse.
Your pointer's we're not picking it up on the screen.
The pointer's there.
It's a green pointer, and we can't make it any larger.
Too much green.
Okay, so this is the old clubhouse.
So this is the old clubhouse, the old hotel, Northwest 2nd and Clintmore. the railway line runs north-south along the east property. So we put the clubhouse over here, and we have, sorry, this is option 2, by the way. Let me just go back to option 1. Okay, so option 1 was based on the predication of putting the clubhouse on the north side, the maintenance facility on the south. And then the idea is that as a golf facility, golfers would come over to the clubhouse, they would park their cars, take a golf cart, make their way over onto the east side to the range, hit balls, back to the first tee, play 9, under the tunnel, play 18, and then under the tunnels back to, and then back to the clubhouse. So what that did essentially is it separated your, should we call it traditional golfer, who's just here to play 18 holes. On the east side, we created more of a very much a family-orientated facility that composed of a very large putting course, not a putting green, not a putt-putt green, but a large putting course that would appeal to a larger percentage of the population. Great place to learn to play golf. A small clubhouse here that would serve this area, along with an outdoor seating area. Everything is connected to the short course, the putting course, the driving range. And so this becomes more of almost a community area, or fun zone, as we've called it. We would also have a health or a wellness area in the clubhouse where you could go outside and conduct yoga classes, exercise classes. So that was pretty much option 1. And then on to option 2, we moved the maintenance facility over onto the east side. Still having the clubhouse over here. So that was the real change to all of this project. This option was to leave that open for whatever purpose that the district may need, and move the maintenance facility over to the east side. And then in option 3, we considered the fact that the district may wish to keep the hotel site free as well. And what we did is we moved everything this way, made it fit a little more. Some of the issues with that, it just squeezed things a little bit. But again, I think the main concept is here with these 3 options are that your golf is very separate, a very separate experience to this experience here. And so that's what the 3 options are based on. I think subsequent to that, over the past few days, we've actually, we continue to think about this all the time, obviously. But a couple of us got together and we've had the thought of creating a 4th option of potentially moving the clubhouse from the north side across to the east side. And we're currently, Tom was working late this afternoon on some spatial issues to understand what exactly the effects are. So at this point, we're still trying to understand all of the implications and what is affected, how they're affected. And so I would ask that before you make your decision here tonight, that you give us a few days maybe just to come up with the 4th option. And I think it's one that we should consider, that you should definitely consider as an option.
Could I ask a quick question? What would you see as the advantage of the golf course to move the clubhouse, if I understood that correctly, to the east side of Northwest Second?
I'll answer that question.
Thank you.
The biggest concern that we had at our last meeting was the traffic and the getting into and out of the clubhouse in the northwest corner. That was the biggest issue. With the clubhouse being located to the southeast section, you can come in Second Avenue, take a right, come down Second Avenue from the north, take a left, come in Clinton-Moore, and just go straight right into the clubhouse. And the easy ingress and egress out of the clubhouse. That was a primary concern, because there was a great deal of concern expressed with the traffic pattern in the clubhouse in the northwest corner, and that was the reason for the discussion.
Generally, when golfers finish playing golf, it's sort of nice to have that clubhouse and a restaurant and lounge accessible, easily accessible. What's going to happen? You got to go across over Northwest Second.
Well, it depends on where the golf courses are, where you pick the golf course up.
What I'm seeing here is the golf course is on the other side of Northwest Second.
Well, nothing's perfect. We had to deal with what we got to deal with, so that's what we're trying to accomplish and meet everybody's expectations. So we're going to probably, I'm sure everybody would like to hear the recommendations after we look at the southeast corner. I think that's something that we probably should consider, commissioners. Yeah. And so I think, Mr. Brainworth, I think that's your charge is to take a look at that and see if that's a viable option for us.
I think, please don't judge anything at this point. I think in my very opening sentence at the previous presentation, I said that this is conceptual. Nobody's made any decisions. We're having a look at the implications because without implications you can't make an informed decision. So only once we have that information for the commissioners can they really answer your questions or understand what we're going to do. We don't even have a plan yet today. But again, I ask, keep an open mind. Not every golf course is the same. It doesn't matter whether it's up north, down south, out west. It's irrelevant. Every golf course is different. And what we're faced with on this piece of property is 3 separate parcels that have been developed by others prior to us coming here. So we have those constraints that we have to work around. And I can assure you of one thing, it's not going to be perfect. It really isn't, because we're dealing with those constraints. So there has to, whatever we do here, if we move the clubhouse here, or we move the 5th hole here, there's a domino effect. And so one thing leads to another. And at the end of the day, you've got to, I think the commissioners have to make the decision just based on the fact that what is the implication that they prefer as opposed to those that they don't. I would also like to say, all the plans of the golf course that we've put up here, in fact, on option 1, if you have a look on the top of it, says that the tees, greens, fairways, lakes are subject to be moved. It's not written in stone. We haven't presented the design of the golf course yet. That will come in the future. And so, while you're certainly welcome to continue on your path of designing the golf course, I can assure you that will follow. We have to get the master plan into place. There's a lot of issues that we have to get into place first before we can design the golf course. Because if buildings are still moving, there's no point to spending hours and hours, countless hours, on designing and then have to throw that in the trash and start again. So it is a process. I can assure you we've been through it before. I'm not saying we know everything, but we do understand the process, and be assured we are following the process to create the best golf course we can.
Commissioners, any questions, Mr. Brainworth? I think, I do think that Wayne is correct. I mean, we're still some time away from actually putting our thumbprint on what we actually want on the course. We're still some moving pieces there. Hopefully we'll get the structure settled down soon, pick the best location. It's not going to be, the appeal to everyone is, it's probably going to have to be wait till we tee off the first golf ball and play the course, but there's a lot of things that are still in motion that we have to settle down before we can start critiquing the plan. Greg, you had your hand up.
A couple things. First of all, on the design for the community, is that all of this is kind of driven off of will it be profitable, how will it look, and we haven't really seen that yet. But one thing that we did strive to do in the selection of the architect, and as we move forward to keep in mind, is it's not necessarily a traditional golf course. So when you come to that traditional thought that you end at the clubhouse and you want to have that, that's the traditional golf course in a lot of ways. But the new element in the course that is designed in this is, one is the level and the scope of the driving range, much larger than Osprey, and the short course. And I really encourage you to go look at Pinehurst, that Cradle video that's out there, because after I looked at it, I said, this is a good idea, because we're trying to attract new, younger players to it and really have a community-based golf course for all the district. In order to do that, though, it also means where are your facilities at? And just by nature of the property, Wayne's and Tom are challenged with, where do you put the clubhouse? Are you going to have 2 clubhouses? Are you not? The real priority for us is to get going on the golf course and maybe not get too fixated on the clubhouse. But I could tell you, my preference after looking at it was we should steer more towards that east side of the course for a lot of reasons. In the selection of the 17 architects we interviewed, some suggested retail, some suggested many things. We kind of ruled out the hotel. But at the end of the day, the district has paid $24 million for this, and it's very expensive. And so this thing has to kind of work for everyone. And that is going to mean some level of sacrifice from the residents, because you're going to get a lot more activity on Second Avenue, a lot more activity on Clintmore than it is today. And that course has to be usable for everyone. So I think we're all in it for the right reasons, but keep an open mind and really allow the Price Fazio team to continue to develop and let it evolve. And I think we're going to get to the right solution. That short course concept, I, like you, also said, it's another executive course. We don't need one of those. But when you see short course, that is really pretty creative. And that was really something that the Price team brought to the table that was different from the others. And so I think we need to let them do that and maximize the use of the land. And if we can't use the land in a reasonable fashion, we need to just park it for the future and we'll deal with it. We need to focus on that driving range, that short course, and the golf center. I would like to see them, build out, one thing I've learned from city staff is that build us our maintenance facility first. And then, we've done a lot of good work on clubhouse and design, but I want to see a maintenance facility because someone's going to have to use that. And I want to see bathrooms out there. I want to know where those are going to be. And the reality is we don't know what the price tag of the clubhouse and everything else is, but I do know we're running out of more time. So I want to go to the city with a number for a full golf course and some operating numbers. And that may mean some activity out there that everyone's going to have to trust us on and make it work for the best of the community.
Thank you, Greg. Wayne, I believe you mentioned the construction cost for the course itself of $10 million in our last meeting. Is that you still hold to that? That's both the east and the west side of the course as far as the development goes.
That's correct.
No verticals, other than the restrooms.
For landscape.
Right.
$10 million for the construction.
Yeah. All right. So I think with that, we want to get a number so we could go to City Council and have a joint meeting, this month, if at all possible, so that we can keep this process moving, very like you said. Aaron?
Well, I was just going to say, when we do have a meeting with them, I think part of the discussion should include the extension of Jefferson
Clintmore.
Street, because I think that's that potentially is a big component of what can be on the east side
think everyone supports that idea, including a traffic engineer that gave us a letter that was in our packet last week that said that the probability of putting a crossing over the Bright Line and the FCS Railroad would be impossible. And I think with that was the only reservation that one council, I think the mayor had with abandoning that road to us, and then we could acquire that property that's in that northeast corner of there, which would round out that area for us and give us a lot of extra space that we could work with and architect can be creative with. Point. Anyone else?
I've mentioned this to Wayne in an email, but I'd like for you all to understand where I'm coming from as far as the maintenance. I know that somebody was concerned about the aesthetics of having the maintenance on the west side, but I also want you to consider that there's a real safety issue. If we're going to have a family and child-friendly east side, there are a lot of pieces of equipment, there is a lot of insecticides, fertilizers that go into these maintenance facilities. So I would like to keep that as far away from the kids and the families as possible.
If there's anything else on this subject? Well, Tommy, thank you very much for coming down this evening, and we're always looking forward to getting the project a little more closer to where we can actually see, greens, teas, and restrooms. If at all possible, continue to keep us. We're anxious to get the project underway, and as I said earlier, we'd like to do. I'd love to see an RFP put out in January, I know the 2-year construction cost or construction timeline is a challenge because of the permitting process, which is really the biggest issue we have to get through. If we could get the city to reduce that time to 3 months, that would be a big help toward an earlier opening. Okay, thank you very much for coming this evening. Commissioners, next item on the agenda are the batting cages that you've heard Mr. Schultz mention the need for those and the safety issues associated with that. And as Greg mentioned, it was in our budget a year ago and was not moved forward since we hadn't had anyone express a demand for that. But we've investigated it, and in your packet some information. And I'd like to ask Melissa Dawson to run through a couple of the examples and give us some direction that we might be able to give to her to move forward with this project or not. Melissa?
Thank you. Commissioners, in your packet, what I'd like to start with is on page 30 of your packet. Is a picture of the current batting cages of the Boone Fields here at Sugar Sand Park. And what I wanted to point out to you is some of the issues that, according to what has been expressed to me, is not only about the fact they just need to be renovated with the nets and the padding, because we can replace those items, but one of the concerns is also the width of the quad field cages is 12 feet wide. It's recommended that batting cages be 12 to 14 feet wide, so it does meet the minimum. But there are some ricochet concerns with ball ricocheting off the pipes that are going down the side of the cage, and you can see them there in the picture. If you will look on page, what I did was on page 33, there's another type of a batting cage there. And you'll notice that batting cage has it's a more of a tension instead of compartmentalized batting cage. And the tension runs, but there's no piping on down the side and no steel pipes down the side, so that takes away your ability to ricochet off that and makes it a safer area for the youth that are participating in there. As well, if you'll notice on page 31, you'll see there's, and this is something that really concerns me, there's no different distance between the two batting cages there. When you look down the middle, what you're looking at is a picture of the batting cages here at Sugar Sand Park, and you'll see how the nets from the middle of them meet right up and actually touch each other. My concern is, and one of the concerns, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know if it's happened yet, but one of the major concerns I have with that is if you have some youth that are using one of the batting cages and you have youth that are walking around picking up balls that have been hit the other one, if they're walking up close to that and not paying attention, they could be hit by those balls coming from the other one. So if you'll notice back on page 33, this other course, at the top, you'll see that there's a T at the top in the middle. And you can go to the next page, and I've kind of blown that picture up for you, which then allows for there to be at least, that's about an 8-inch T on either side, so you've got about 16 inches there, and then that'll keep those nets spread apart, so that if you have somebody walking in one cage and not paying attention, it's a safer situation where they won't have the balls come into the nets and hit and possibly hit them. So the recommendation I have is to renovate the cages, but when we go to renovate the cages, the quad field cages are only 12 feet wide, and the dual field cages are 14 feet wide here. My recommendation would be to go ahead and invest in making the quad field cages, that's the close ones here at Sugar Sand Park, and increasing that concrete out to 14 foot and making those match the ones that are back at the dual fields. The ones at Patch Reef Park are in the same situation as the quads fields here. They're 12 feet wide as well, and they have the same kind of piping down the side of them. So my recommendation would be that we address both of those sets at the same time, and this would have to be a bid process, an RFP process. So you'll see, I wrote up an example of one this past year when we thought we might be doing this as part of the budget. There's a sample of specs that I wrote to put in there that we would add with front-end documents. Obviously, I'd have Mr. Kosky review it as well, add it to front-end documents, and I asked for pricing in 3 different levels. Redoing one cage, and then redoing each of the cages individually, and then redoing them all at once to see if there could be any savings by doing more than one at a time. Yes. Any questions?
Is there room to do 14 feet? I mean, is there
Yes.
adequate room?
Yes. I've had two people come out and take a look. One was a construction manager, and a construction group that's been working with quite a bit with the city, and one was one that I've worked with quite a bit at FAU. And those are the quotes that you'll see on page 27, just to get an estimate. Those quotes are for the quad fields, which need the most work done. You'll see the estimate down there for the dual field is also noted. If that was an interest of ours to do those two. What's not included in there is there are sprinklers that run down the edge of all the cages, and we'll have to relocate those when we're going to spread out, and we're going to widen the concrete. So we'll have to relocate those sprinklers. I don't know right now what the cost of that would be, but it would not be substantial. It'd just be going there, relocating those sprinkler heads and moving them out some.
So the issue before us, listening to Melissa, is the adequacy of the batting cages to meet the needs, the safety needs of our baseball participants. And if the district commissioners are interested in obtaining an RFP to make these improvements, and I would ask for the commissioner's input at this time.
I have a question. Would the cages be limited just to Little League participants or open to the public? And actually, either of that, would we have personnel there to make sure that every child has a batting helmet? And I would prefer that the batting helmets have face cages.
Let me ask Mr. Schultz that question, since they run that. I don't know, having open access to the batting cages, I don't think is a good. Yeah.
They are open right now. The other people have used them, and they are open. So we should probably get a list of rules to put out there. And because there are not rules listed and posted on them currently, but I made a note that we could put a list of rules, and I think that's a good idea to have posted right there as you enter.
Mr. Schultz, when your program is participating in batting cages, I'm sure safety is a great concern. What type of equipment do your players use?
Thank you. Everyone who enters a batting cage participating in a Little League event is required to have a helmet on. It's required to be an NOSCAA, Little League Association certified helmet. To your question, Mr. Commissioner, about face cages, Little League does not require face cages. There are softball requirements. Some participants in Little League use them regardless, but they're not, especially higher level boys will not want to wear a face cage. So it's not a requirement of Little League, but players do use them. Everyone is required to have a helmet on and can't access the cages for the Little League team unless they have one. As to open access, I really can't speak to that. When field permits were, I believe, were entitled to the cages kind of travel with permits, which I think is a great system. So that's what I can speak to as I have seen when I'm out there with my kids at Little League times, you know, travel baseball teams. Some people do try to do private lessons there, actually coaches come. So there is use beyond Little League as well. I would note her point about the spacing in between the cages. I can just tell you from personal experience that in addition to the poles, I believe to be critical because you have 6-year-old children, you know, there's just a net in between the two and there's kids hitting on one side. All it takes is this. And, you know, even with a helmet on, you know, or an arm or something else, we have had kids, you know, be nothing catastrophic, obviously, yet having that space in between would be fantastic. And the point about the reverberation off the poles, I've actually been hit from ricochets, especially when the padding comes off. You hit a ball hard off a solid piece of metal, it's gonna fly off hard. So those are two very important safety things. If they can be refurbished in that fashion, would be a great benefit.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. I think, Melissa, you know, Commissioner Engel's concern has to be addressed as far as the monitoring of that. I can see where that could be a problem, unsupervised, you know, batting practice, and that would concern me as well. Commissioners, would you like to give, someone like to make a motion to move the project forward, Greg?
But can I ask some questions first?
Sure, absolutely.
I'm not sure I fully understand the cost of the project. So what I do understand, I just want to clarify, is according to the pictures, what we have is pretty much a fixed structure with chain link fence and batting cage netting around it. So it's a pretty durable structure that's been there for a long time.
I don't know exactly how long, because I haven't been here, but yes, it has.
So
and they've replaced the netting here.
Replace the netting, but that's been the practice for, you know, since this park's been here, almost 30 years, I guess, or whatever those batting cages. The proposal that you're showing as a picture looks like a pier, you know, big hole with a netting. Are you suggesting that we remove everything and put that in?
Yes.
Okay, and that would replace both the ones at Hatch Reef and at Sugar Sand.
The quote that I gave you is to replace only the quad ones at Sugar Sand Park right now. You would have to double that if you want to replace the ones at Hatch Reef.
I'm not sure, so is this $62,900?
That is to do one set, and that's the set at Sugar Sand Park, or the one set at Patrick
When you
Park.
say one set, is that two batting cages?
They both have 2 cages. So there's a dual set of cages at the quad fields here at Sugar Sand, and there's a dual set of cages at Patch Reef Park, side by side.
Okay, so if we were to proceed with this, the concept is that you would take everything out and you put in a robust new batting cage concept that is netting and pole. And for one set at Sugar Sand, roughly 60 some odd thousand plus or minus. And you have some irrigation work. If you did that as well over at Hatch Reef, it's another 60 some odd thousand.
Correct, yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Greg still has full.
No, well, you got the questions. Go ahead. I just want to confirm.
Can we use it, the North sometimes has feedback issues.
The quotes that you gave us were from last year?
They were from January, yes.
Okay.
January of 18.
Do we know that these quotes are still good?
No, because we have to do a competitive bid process anyhow.
Right,
So
so-
to call them up, the gentleman, I've talked to one of them, I was gonna meet with him out there Saturday, but we have to competitively bid it anyhow.
Yeah.
I have checked the pricing of the cost of the actual batting cage itself and of the padding, and that has not gone up.
Okay, so we can be comfortable with assuming that if we did both the Patch Reef and Sugar Sand cages, the cost would be in total approximately $125,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Where's the third set?
The third set, there's a dual set of fields in the further back portion of this park, Sugar Sand Park. You have the 4 fields, there's one there, and then there's a set back towards the dual fields as well. Those are 14 feet wide. The price that I have in there, just as a note for you guys, if you want to do it, is to remove those posts, and you don't have to increase the concrete pad because it's already 14 feet wide. But it would be to replace the batting cage itself to turn it into a tension film board, which takes the bars out from the sides.
So how much would that be?
That's $50,000 total.
So it would actually be more like
It's about $175,000 if you choose to do all three. My proposal to you is that we go ahead and bid it out and we let it price out all three of those and see what it comes back at and then take another look at it. I would say to me the most critical ones, and I believe that you will agree, will be the quad fields at Sugar Sand and the Patch Reef because they were only 12 feet wide. However, the difference from what I've been talking with the city with is the travel ball. On a lot of those use the back dual fields, which a lot of times are your older kids. So therefore, the ricochet when that ball leaves their bat could be a little bit harder coming off in, and that's why you might want to get rid of those steel poles. I would recommend getting rid of the steel poles on those back as well.
But those are 14 feet.
They are 14 feet, but they still have the side poles coming up the side where you can have ricochet.
Which ones get the most use? Sugar Sand or Patch Reef?
Greg, I'll need your help on that. My thought is Sugar Sand does. Sugar Sand quad, I believe, right?
So, Melissa, going back then, it's roughly 160,000 per set. So we did both, it's roughly 125,000. What was the estimate just to redo all the netting we've always been without?
I don't have the price on the netting. Greg may know that. I know replacing the padding, which needs to be done, is $8,000 per dual set.
8,000?
8,000 per two. So
okay, and so
24,000 if you do all three.
24,000.
I don't know on the netting. The netting is obviously less than that, but I don't know the replacement cost for just the netting.
Okay, and then is this in this year's budget?
No.
But it was in last year's budget?
I don't know exactly what the figure was, but yes, we had the batting cages in our budget last year. Right.
For total renovation?
Yeah, it was budgeted $100,000 last year.
I'm just curious as to why it wasn't gone forward.
Well, we were contacted saying there was an interest in redoing it. And I actually reached out to someone, baseball program, come to the meeting and explain why. We never had any response, Steve, so we had a lack of interest. We didn't act on it, and we didn't move it forward. Now, Mr. Schultz has come forward and expressed some concerns about batting cages, and certainly we want to address the safety aspect of it, one way or the other.
So if we were to do it this fiscal year, money would have to come out of our sinking.
I'm not sure, we have a capital improvement.
Yeah, capital improvement.
Right. Just have, but I think the idea is to move this along is not saying I think we need to explore the options in getting an RFP. We can make a decision as to what we want to do and how much of it we want to do, but I think a start would be to find out the exact cost of getting these figures updated from Melissa. I think, as Mr. Schultz said, it's a bunch of safety issues, anything else, with the way that the batting cages are set up and then the ricochet efforts are actually the balls, because the netting is so close, actually accidentally hitting someone opposite time. So, I think, okay. Would you make a motion, Steve? Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. That passed unanimously. Let's get the RFP done and bring it back, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Treasurer?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to present to you a proposal for payments totaling $423,976.45. There were a couple minor changes. I'm not sure which one you have. There was a correction to one of the last payments. Help me out there, Joanne, but basically we voided the Palm Beach Tax County
for $2,110 because we could apply credit to it. So it was reduced to $1,767 for the latest schedule.
Okay. All right. So you've made the motion to second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, like sign. Passed unanimously. All right. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Koski?
No, thank you, sir.
Mr. Gorham? I'm sorry.
It's okay, Chair.
Yeah, listen, I bumped my head on the way in, so excuse me. Sorry.
Nothing on it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. I'll start with Commissioner Ernst down there. Craig, anything for the good of the order?
No.
Thank you. Commissioner Wright.
One thing, I was at the dog, I know, the dog beach is not responsibility or anything like that, it's been a trigger. But I was, there this weekend, and there was a gentleman there, actually, I knew from elementary school, who was in a wheelchair. And his mom had to bring his dog down to the dog beach, because he couldn't access the beach, because he was in a wheelchair. So he asked me if I would, just bring it up, so that we could discuss it with the city, if we could get one of those blue mats, at the entrance to the dog beach, so that wheelchair,
Makes a lot of sense.
or the dog beach, because there is not one.
Greg, would you want to carry that message back for us? Thank you. I think Greg's made note of it. That's a good idea. Very good. Thank you. Mr. Eagle?
I'm good.
Okay. Roseanne?
I did attend the EDSA Gunman Thursday morning. It was very informative. If anybody knows of anybody who wants to donate some money to the project, because it's very comprehensive, it's beautiful, but we got to find some other donors to help us out.
I have nothing to say other than echo what Craig's comments about the working process of the course. Craig, I think you summarized that very nicely. The architects still have a lot of work to do before we put our final say-so on it. I think we would give them an opportunity to do that, and we're all reasonable, pragmatic individuals and are concerned about the issues with the brought forward, and I think we'll address those in this project. Thank you, Greg, for that. I have nothing else to add. And any future agenda items? Entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, like sign. Passed unanimously.